I feel like a lot of highly sensitive people just go through these really crazy things in their lives or really painful things in their lives because I really feel like we're here to share and uplift others. Like because we're such meaning makers, it's like we have these things happen to us that we have this capacity to then turn around and help other people heal if we are open to believing that. And so it's kind of like, it's just really interesting to me how so many of us have these stories that like are painful, but then so many of us are now choosing to create beauty from that and help others because of our empathetic hearts. Like I think it's for a reason. I really, really do.
Help Me See is a podcast that redefines the word vision through vulnerable and real conversations, my own private introspective ramblings about the things that I think about in the wee hours of the morning, and my deep core belief that your nothingness is your everything, and all you have to do is see. I'm Bianca Mora. I'm your host. I am an educator, a photographic artist, and I believe that your daily photo habit can be the key to unlocking the ability to be more present in your everyday life and live deeper into your intention and purpose. We're not about the small talk here. Grab your coffee, get cozy, and let's talk.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Help Me See. Today on the show, we have Alissa Boyer. And Alissa is basically the reason that I realized that I am something called an HSP, a highly sensitive person. If you haven't heard of it, maybe check it out, because if you're listening to this podcast, odds are you have some feels. and it's a real world opener. So Alissa is a mentor for highly sensitive people with a passion for helping fellow HSPs learn how to reduce overwhelm, manage their energy, and fully embrace who they are. She's the creator of several online programs, including the Highly Sensitive and Soulful Membership, the Sensitive and Soulful Self-Worth, and host of a podcast called The Sensitive and Soulful Show. She's a writer for the award-winning HSP blog, Highly Sensitive Refuge. So Alissa and I chat a lot about what it means to have this tendency to have an increased awareness and sensitivity in business, in motherhood, in life, at home, in the world. And what's so interesting to me about this conversation is, as I'm reflecting on it now, it's just thinking about this idea that why is it that we always default to assuming shame, assuming blame, assuming we're doing it wrong, because we're seeing the majority of people doing something else. You know, even outside of HSPs in general, you don't have to have a diagnosis to trust yourself. You don't have to have a quote unquote reason or something to point to validate yourself for doing things the way you friggin' want to do it. Right? I mean, don't get me wrong. When I found out about being an HSP and I did research and I looked at the culmination of all the information that researchers have done and statistics, and learned how things are linked, and I really understood and was able to draw the line between many, many, many different aspects of my life and my personality and my tendencies. It's so helpful. It's endlessly helpful. But if you don't identify with this and you don't have a name for something that you do identify with, I just want to invite you to assume trust in yourself. And if something doesn't feel right to you, that is the most valid, important reason there could ever be. So that's my spiel on that. I really, really loved my conversation with Alissa. She is a gorgeous soul doing such important work in the world. And this idea of using your most tender spot, your highest vulnerability, and turning it into something that is your greatest gift, and something so powerful that it can activate others and spread good in the world. That is what I'm all about. So sign me up for it all. If you want to learn more about Alissa, head to the show notes and you can find more about her there. I really hope that you enjoy this conversation. Before we get into the show, I need to ask, are you a photographic artist that is in this line of work to make meaning and to do work that you really believe in, but you feel kind of restless? You feel like you're at a point where you can't always consistently make the magic that you dream about creating. You have this large, beautiful vision for how much power your work can have on others, but you seem to default in times of nervousness during a session, or are having trouble unlearning some of the things that you learned how to do from professionals or schooling, or whatever Google page result you ended up on. If this is you, head to the show notes and sign up for my wait list for my new coaching program and course coming out soon. It's called Your Bigger Picture. Your Bigger Picture is for visionary photographic artists who want to create with freedom, purpose, and intention. I am really, really excited to share behind the scenes of literally everything I do. And I feel so passionately about it because not that I want you to do the same, but because I want you to understand that I believe so strongly in my work, and I am known for my specific aesthetic and creative expression, and I do everything wrong. I do everything against what I have been told. And it's taken me some years to understand really how what I thought was a weakness or a vulnerable spot was actually my greatest strength in my art. So if you want to learn more about this and tap into your superpower, sign up for the waitlist. You can learn more. Okay, on with the show. Alissa, hi. How are you today? I'm really excited to chat. I don't think I told you this before initially, but I am fairly certain that you are the reason why I even realized what HSP was. Like, you were my introduction to it, and it's just been a world opener for me. So I'm so excited to have you on the show and just share this portal to a whole universe, because that's what I feel like it is, a whole freaking universe, with others, because I do think that although I know that we're not the majority, I think there's far more HSPs out there than kind of realize that they are. So Alissa, this is Alissa Boyer. She's an HSP mentor and podcasts, programs, just all the things. Thank you so much for joining us. I can't wait to hear everything you have to share.
Hi, yeah, thank you for having me on. And that's so cool to hear that I was probably your introduction to HSP, highly sensitive person. That's amazing. And I find that a lot of times I am often people's introduction to it, which is really cool to hear. And I just love how you said, like, it's a whole world and it's like a vortex and all of that. It's so, so true. And like, it's funny, when I started doing this work, I was like, I just want to create my own little HSP world. And like what I would have wanted to have available to me when I first found out I was a highly sensitive person, like that is what I try to create. Like that is always what I have in mind. So yeah, I'm excited to share with your audience all the things about being a highly sensitive person, what it means. Like, happy to dive into anything here, but yeah, I'm excited to chat.
I feel like I know it was my experience, and the few people that I've felt so inclined to kind of share this with and point them in your direction, I've had this common occurrence where when you first bring it up, And you're like, have you heard of HSP? It's like a highly sensitive person. I think the initial reaction is, oh yeah, that's totally probably me. And then
Yes.
like, ha ha ha, yeah. I'm so like, I don't know. It just sounds like, I don't even know what the connotation is. And then you start reading a little bit and then it's like, dun, dun.
Like, oh my gosh.
Your heart drops to your toes and you're like, oh my gosh. I know that when after learning about it through you, and then I went to read Elaine Aron's The Highly Sensitive Person book, I was like, has this woman stalked me my whole life and I just never saw her? Like, this is crazy. But really, that is another reason why I love your work so much, is that you have this incredible freakish ability to be able to articulate with such specificity. And I think that sometimes when we are when we are so inside of something, it's really hard to verbalize. It's just so in part of us. So I'm so fascinated to learn how you got to the point where, you learned, hey, I think this is me, to being able to be such a stand and such a beacon of like clarity for people and being able to connect these dots.
Well, I really appreciate that feedback. That is something I hear all the time. People are like, oh my gosh, how did you get in my head? And it's like, I'm really just like sharing what's in my head. And we all actually think a lot more similarly than we realize. So yeah, I mean, and it's crazy. I feel like so many of us, when we first find out we're highly sensitive, or like we hear about the term, it's exactly as you said, like, oh yeah, that's probably me. And then you read about it and it's like, whoa, that's crazy. That like totally is my life. So yeah, like for me, I found out I was highly sensitive about, I want to say it was like 8 years ago now. I was like in my early 20s. I was working in this corporate job and it was like this really intense environment and I was getting really sick. I had like severe digestive issues and I was going to all these different gastroenterologists. No one was able to help me. And they were like, it might be in your head. Like I'm not seeing anything really wrong with you. And I mean, that was horrible and so hard. And I was like, well, I know I'm suffering. I mean, I could hardly eat foods without feeling sick. Eventually, after like a year of just like searching, I found a holistic doctor, which was like totally new to me. I was never into like holistic things or anything like that, but I was desperate. And in working with him, he explained to me like the mind-body connection and how stress and anxiety has such an impact on our gut. And I was chronically stressed in this environment. So working with him, he started helping me kind of see like the emotional stressors and all of this like trauma that I was holding on to in my body. And I got really obsessed with self-help and like kind of like figuring myself out. And so it was at that time that my mom introduced me to the book, The Highly Sensitive Person by Dr. Elaine Aron. Like I don't know how she found out about it, but she's like, hey, this sounds like it might like describe you. And so I read that book and it was like this just aha moment where for the first time in my life, I felt seen. I felt like I wasn't weird or wrong or broken for being sensitive, because up until that point, I tried to hide my sensitivity. I tried to like just be like everyone else and not care too much because, God forbid you show your feelings. And yeah, so that was just like a permission giver. And I mean, from there, I started to just feel really inspired by everything that I was learning from like all the self-help I was reading and like I was meditating. And so I started a blog back in 2019 and it wasn't for like HSPs or anything like that. It was just like a blog to share life inspiration. And my tagline was like, finding the beauty in the everyday, because I've always been a person who like, if something happens in my life or in my day, I like want to find the like deeper meaning to it, or like, oh, what is, I'm like, that's just naturally what I do, which I think is a pretty HSP thing. But yeah, so then just from sharing in my blog and connecting with people, I eventually just started talking more about sensitivity, because I found when I shared honestly about the things that I felt and thought, other people were like, holy crap, I feel the exact same way. And so it's really interesting. And that's like what I always come back to is like, I just share everything I share is stuff that I'm dealing with or have dealt with or struggle with or I'm thinking about. And I find that it's just like life-giving and like a permission slip for other people to see like, oh, I'm not the only one who feels this way. So yeah, and it's been amazing what it's all kind of like turned into at this point.
I mean, it is really, truly incredible. It's funny. I was going back and listening to a few of your recent posts, and it's just, even as you talk now, I'm like, there's just so much. And I'm like, same, 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 same. And that is like particularly startling for people that have grown up most of their life feeling like that lone person. Like I am like self-proclaimed, like a lone wolf hermit. Oh, group project. Don't worry, guys. I'll put your name on it. See you next week. Like,
oh my gosh. Yes. Yes.
but you know that it's like, uh, I find that it's such an intricate thread that's weaved in these situations, because of course there can be layers of like self-protection and anxiety and this and that, but my truth and my base to it is, I think that there's like this core wound of, when I'm not feeling 1000% connected with someone, I would rather be alone. And it, I mean, a million times over. And I think that I've actually just been diving into the world of NLP, and I've been working with a coach, and we've like revisited some older memories, and we came to these words of disappointment, and how I don't give people the opportunity to disappoint anymore. And this belief that I do not believe that I can be supported by anyone in the way that I want to be supported.
Wow.
And how it's all intertwined and intermingled is just so crazy. So how, I mean, it's such a huge world, it's such a universe. How do you help people just begin by taking off the layers one by one, because it is deep?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, and just to also just to say, I can totally relate to like that lone wolf thing. And I just recorded like a podcast coming out soon about that. But, and what you were saying just like resonated so deep. And I'm sure a lot of HSPs can relate, where it's like not even wanting to ask for help or support because you don't want the person to disappoint you. I just felt that so much. And I know that's such a thing. And so many sensitive people are like the ones who like carry it all on their shoulders and do all the things. And we're the caregivers and all of that. So I think it's just like a wound that probably so many of us have. It's really wild how much we all have in common. But yeah, so in terms of like where to start and all of the layers and things like that, I always tell people like, just start with like learning about the trait, getting to know what it means to be a highly sensitive person. I mean, Dr. Elaine Aron's book is amazing. It's like the Bible for HSPs. Like that is like the best place to just like start, dive in, learn about it. Because to me, it's like when you have that information about the trait and the facts about it, it's so validating. It helps you see like, oh, I was created this way. Like I am genetically like, this is me. This is just part of me. And so that's validating. The other thing I always encourage, and this is why I've like created my programs and my whole little world, is like, get around other highly sensitive people, get into a community. I mean, I have a free Facebook group. I have a membership program. I have other, all sorts of programs, because it's like a lot of HSPs, we tend to have a lot of shame that we are holding on to because of our sensitivity, because I would say probably the majority of us grew up hearing like, you're so sensitive, you're so dramatic, stop being so emotional. And we experience like being gaslit so much that we have this shame, like, oh, the way I am is bad and wrong and feel too much. And so I've literally seen it with my own eyes in my communities where people, HSPs, are just like talking openly and sharing. And there's like, the walls can come down and healing can start to occur because you are in a space where there's someone else who feels the same way as you do. And you're like, wait, I'm not the only one who feels this way. So those are some major things. And then, I mean, I teach on so many things. Boundary setting is key. Learning how to, like work with your past limiting beliefs and insecurities and healing your self-worth. Like there's so much to it. There's so many different layers that we go into. But first and foremost, it's like learn about it, get around other people who get it. Like that's huge.
Yeah. And it's funny because even the word self, or the self-worth thing, a few months ago, someone had asked me, I was on a call with someone and they're like, well, do you struggle with self-worth? And I like very flippantly was like, oh no, like it just didn't resonate. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's sometimes it takes us time. And for the next 2 weeks, I was like, what the like,
Yes.
what? Yes, I do. My God, I didn't realize it because it's like the most sophisticated, insidious ways that it kind of sneaks in your life. And at this
So
point in
much.
your journey, and you've had so many conversations with so many people that relate to you so deeply, my
Mm-hmm.
question to you is, do you still get shocked and surprised recognizing yourself in like new patterns?
Yes, yes, so much so for sure. I'm going through it right now as a new mom. I had a baby almost 6 months ago now. So it's crazy. And
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, it's crazy. So, like, I had actually created a program on self-worth for HSP specifically, like while I was pregnant. And because self-worth is at the core of so many of the things that we struggle with, it's so pervasive. So, I like created this whole program. I like knew it inside and out. And then I had a baby and my own self-worth issues started showing up. And I was like, wait, I thought I figured this out. But
Mm.
I've been working with a therapist and my own old patterns have been coming out because I find that, new life situations, just things happen and our old patterns can come up. And there's these extra layers that are always kind of coming through to be healed. So, yeah, for me, like something that's run really deep is like this perfectionism, like always feeling like I need to be perfect in order to be valuable and worthy. And so that's coming up in a new way in motherhood. And so, yeah, it does surprise me. And then it's also like pieces that are still coming up for me where I'm feeling like alone for being sensitive. There's still that like little bit where it's like we kind of have that like separation, like, oh, I still feel a little bit misunderstood. Still feel a little
Mhm.
bit alone in my sensitivity. And like, I've been at this for years and I teach people, but I still have my own stuff that comes up. And I always share openly about it because one thing I see from a lot of people I work with is like they get really down on themselves if they've been working on something and then they like backpedal and they like fall
Mm.
back into an old pattern. And I'm like,
Mhm.
no, like you're a human. Like this stuff
Yeah.
happens. It's not, it's about how you get back up. So yeah, it's super interesting though. It's been
Yeah.
really, yeah.
I have 1000%. I have that experience where I'm like, I've been working on this for so long. And then when the shit hits the fan, I get so disappointed in myself, but I have to catch myself and be like, I am recognizing and understanding this to such a degree that that is the growth of it. It's not that I won't react. It's just that
Yeah.
that deeper comprehension and like to be okay with yourself with that. When I had my first son, I was hit very hard and back what is it whiplashed with
Mm-hmm.
postpartum depression. And of course, I don't think anyone expects to have it, but I would
Yeah.
say that what was the most startling part of that was I was always used to my comfort being alone, and like I was fine with it. But I was so scared with that feeling of alone. I remember distinctly like looking at my partner like deer in the headlights, being like I didn't recognize my skin. I didn't recognize anything. I felt like my background. I felt black like a
Mm,
cave. And I was like,
yes.
this is a whole new level of like I can't connect with anyone, and I can't connect with myself either. That was the biggest thing. Is
Mm-hmm.
like when you feel disconnected from yourself, because I feel like as an HSP, you can find such a sense of home, even though there's a lot going on in like your feels. It's like, oh,
Yes.
what you talked earlier about like recognizing the meaning underneath the things. And like, I think
Mm-hmm.
that is such a reason why we can be okay with being quote unquote lonely and not having a lot of friends, because we're so
Yeah.
stimulated by like all of the meaning that we can find in freaking
You're
everything in
so
a
right.
blade of grass. Like I'm a
You're so right.
photographer, so I don't have words, but I'm able to be like, this with my camera, like this is what is important, this is what I
Yes.
mean, blah blah blah. But yeah, to just be hit with this a transition like
Mhm.
motherhood or whatever it is really puts a new spin on everything. And how are you navigating that?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I can relate so much, just the whiplash. And it's just such a swift, like, transition. It's just like the carpet's ripped underneath you, like everything, it changes. And that's been hard for me. And I mean, I'll say in the past couple of months, I'm finally like feeling better. But for me, at first, the hardest thing was definitely like, who am I? Like this huge like identity shift. I felt a lot of grief leaving behind the old version of me who had the time to just be creative and dream and work till however long I wanted. It was like I had a lot of grief about leaving that version behind, and it was really hard and really sad for me. I'm like, what? And then you're kind of like, that liminal space where you're like, I don't know who who I am now. Like I feel like weird and disconnected, and like you were saying, like trying, we love to find the meaning in things, and like I just felt so lost in those very, very early days where I'm like, I don't even know what's going on. So that was hard for sure. And then also just like the loss of like alone time, and your schedule goes on to someone else's schedule. And as somebody who likes my downtime and likes time to myself, like having that taken away is like very overwhelming and overstimulating. Yeah. So that was a challenge. But what I found that's been very helpful for me, and where I'm kind of like coming out the other side and starting to feel more confident and kind of like stepping into this next version, is like I've been getting a ton of support, and I've been like really open about that. Like I started seeing a postpartum therapist probably 2 months ago now. And I've joined a Mom and Me group that I go to every week with my daughter, and like just being supported and like talking with people about the real things is like life-giving for me, because I had felt this like extreme sense of isolation, identity loss, frustration, like just to keep it real. Like I always knew I wanted to be a mom, and I thought it would be a lot more natural for me to just fall into that, but it wasn't. And it's like still kind of grappling, to be honest. Like, okay, this driven overachiever part of me who wants to work all the time, like I have to shut that off a lot of times because I have to go be mom. And so I'm still like coming to terms with it, but getting support has been everything for me.
Oh my God. I'm not even it's going to be a broken record, but this is the last time I'll say same exact, like this, I wanted this. Why do I want to press, control or command Z?
Yeah. Yes.
What the fuck? But I find that, so with the support too, and it's been about almost 2 years now where I've really sunk my teeth into this like online space of support and being able to connect with people, because for so long I was like, yeah, no thanks. But being able to find the right people is so empowering. But even if, and this is like the unlock for me recently with it, is that even if it's not like the absolute perfect person that I feel like really gets me, there's so much power to be found in using your own voice and just saying what needs to be said. One of the things that I found to be uncomfortable, but still so worthwhile to do it, is when I came back from maternity leave. There was, very well-meaning, sweet people being like, oh my gosh, how was it? It must have been wonderful. And in that moment, it's like lump in the throat. And I'm like, no, it was really terrible. I had a really hard time. Like I just had to say it because I was so fucking angry at no one and everyone about like, why did I not have any idea that it could be this bad? Why are we using the word baby blues? It's such a cute word. Like, why? Seriously, so I find that like being able to just say it and deal with like, maybe it makes that person uncomfortable, which is a terrible thing for me because I'm a huge empath. I want everyone to be comfortable and happy and don't want anyone to feel bad. But at the same time, it's like having this understanding that like, no, this is so important to say, like whether or not you hear me, it's important for me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I have chills when you say that, because that's so it. And there's like I don't know, there's this like messaging out there where it's like, oh, you should be grateful you have a healthy baby and you're here, you're fine, everything's okay. And it's just like, and then you're like, well, I am struggling and this sucks. Like, and I don't feel happy and I don't feel like myself. And I totally resonate with that. And like, that's been one of the coolest things about like this Mom and Me group that I've been going to. It's just been amazing because I'm in a group with other moms who have babies that are the same age as my baby. And it's like, every single week we share like our joy and challenge of the week. And it's like crazy because it's eye-opening to me. Like, it's like, oh, other people are dealing with the same concerns, stresses that I am, or they have other ones that are easy for me. And that also puts it into perspective where it's like, you can kind of think, oh, I'm the only one struggling, but like also there's people who have other struggles that are like no big deal for you. And so that was also kind of like helpful for me to see like, oh, I'm doing a little better than I thought. I'm not the only one. Like, it's super normal to have a hard time. And that's why we need vulnerability and honesty, because when people are just like acting like everything should be perfect and then you're struggling, you feel like you're on an island. And so, yeah, just being able to voice it is like, that's healing in itself for sure.
Yeah, totally. What we focus on expands to the point where like we can't see around it or through it. It's just the biggest fog, the biggest haze. It's so funny. I find that with all of the, I still like, even as we're talking, I'm like, oh, this is why I created, like, I have a membership too. And I'm like, oh, I'm trying to help people uncover the different, like the thing that I do normally. It's so ingrained that we don't even know we're doing it in every single thing that we do. One thing that do you have your new offering is around HSP business owners, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So listen, HSP over here. And my biggest struggle is like, how do I put into words what I'm trying to do? There are no words. It's so big. It's so complex. It's so this. And plus I'm a photographer. So I'm like, no, I use pictures. I don't use words. Right. So it's like, it's something that is like, in even more, it's funny because you think, oh, I'm only talking to HSPs or like only HSPs that have worthiness issues. And now you're like, okay, now I'm going to talk to HSPs that are starting a business because that is its own, that's like birthing a baby as well.
Yeah,
let me tell you.
So it is for sure. It is for sure. Yeah.
Can you talk about why you decided to do this?
Totally. Yeah. So it's funny. I was just talking to someone about this on Monday. I'm like, anything I'm going through in my life, I can't help but like want to help other people with it. It's like this, like, it's like an obsession. I just cannot help myself. So I want to talk about motherhood. I want to talk about business because I'm a business owner, HSP. Yeah. So it's funny. I mean, I was getting a lot of DMs from people, still do, where they'll ask me like questions about building a community on social media, or how do you do this, or how do you deal with people sending hateful messages or whatever. I just always was getting questions from people. And so it was like kind of a light bulb. I'm like, oh, I have answers. I can totally help people with this. And one of the things I could just talk about forever is business and strategy. I am actually like a pretty strategic person, not in like the traditional like boring sense, but like I do like to think about how things connect and whatever. So to me, business is like so fun and interesting. And I knew from my own experience that like starting my own business now is like amazing because I'm able to work for myself, have a flexible schedule, and then be present with my daughter. Like that's a total dream and like all I could have asked for. And so seeing how it's benefiting my life so much, I'm like, I want to help other HSPs have the same opportunity if that's something that calls to them, because we tend to like do a lot better with more flexible schedules. And like, I mean, we're such like passionate people. We tend to be. It's like doing work that's like soul giving is amazing for us. Like it's like energizing. And I think we need that. And I know that there are very like unique challenges that highly sensitive people have when it comes to like showing up online and pricing offerings and all the things. Like we just have that added layer of sensitivity. And so because I've navigated all of this and like have come to a point where I'm like self-sustained and all of that, I'm like, okay, I want to help people. So I have like a smaller group program, which is a mastermind of like, I cap it at 8 women or 8 people. And then I have a program that I'm running right now, which is for newer business owners. So helping them literally like establish their voice and like, decide who they want to talk to and all of the things. And it's so fun. It's like, I'm obsessed. So yeah, that's my latest thing.
That must be a total game changer for your client and your person, because there are so many, and I'm kind of like I'm a total like edutainment junkie. I want to go get my master's. Like I could sit on Zoom all day in classes. Like I love learning. But there are so many, and at this point I've realized what it was that was like a huge disconnect, but there were so many programs that I was misaligned with and I didn't understand like what it was that wasn't feeling right. And I couldn't decipher yet at that point in time. I'm like, is this my intuition and a knowing, or is it just that I'm scared and this is uncomfortable? And, it could have been either, but it definitely at that point, it was intuition, but I didn't trust that it was intuition. So I just love that. I mean, beginning your own business is like the biggest self-growth, self-help, like whatever transformation that you can do. And to be held by someone when you are an HSP that gets that level, that's a game changer, like totally.
Oh yeah. It's like, yeah, because we just have to do things differently and we have different issues, I think, that kind of come up that can be very unique to us as HSPs. So I think that's one of the ways I'm here to teach people is just like through my own vulnerability. It's like I've had so many triggers and so many like uncomfortable, crappy moments through building my business. Like even yesterday, some of the DMs I get are just absurd and like really like crazy sometimes. And I'm like, every time I'm navigating something, I'm like, okay, this is something that I can help my HSP clients out with, because they're going to have this come up for them too. Like where people are trying to, surpass your boundaries or they're rude to you or whatever, like so many things come up. And so, yeah, it's like, I think we just need our own little like kind of corner where we're doing business in our own way. And I feel like a lot of like the programs that didn't resonate with me, or just like the content I would consume from business coaches that didn't resonate, it was like where it's very like hard, like rigid, like, okay, you have to post this many times a day and this is how you have to say it. And you have to time block and you have to do this. And like, I would, consume all of this and it would make me feel wrong because I just did things in my own way. And then I was like, oh, wait, am I not going to succeed because I don't like batch all of my content ahead of time or whatever? And so like, gaining confidence in myself in my own way and having it work, it's like, I want to share this with other people. And I think too, like as HSPs, like I think we have the ability to be amazing creators and entrepreneurs because of how empathetic we are. Like the reason people want to like buy from a brand usually is like how it makes them feel. And like if they feel connected, and it's like, we're amazing connectors. We're amazing at like tuning into what people need and want to like need to hear and all of that. And so I love helping like HSPs kind of tease that out of themselves. Like, oh, you already have this gift. Like, how can you use your sensitivity as actually such an asset in your business instead of seeing it as something like that's going to hold you back, So I'm kind of obsessed with that.
What a cleansing way to like move that energy. Like when shit happens, you're like, nothing's going to ever make it not painful at all. But like to be able to be like, okay, I already know that I can turn this into helping someone else. Like it's like a very like swift, like movement situation. Yeah. And I love that your business, like not only are you so deeply serving so many other people, but it sounds like you're so deeply serving yourself in this, like this channel that you've created to be able to like constantly, what we talked about before, like how helpful it is and empowering to just say the thing. And I think that's why, like with my photographic work, when I'm photographing a family and like the way that I treat that family and the way that I go about the work and the way that I repeatedly over and over again, just be like, everything you do is perfect. Don't worry about it. Oh, the kids, they don't want to come over. That's fine. I'm going to follow them. Whatever they decide is perfect. I'm realizing I could cry. I got to do something. I wish I could do that for myself. And the way that I can feel like I'm benefiting from that space is to be in that and do that for others so that I can like kind of teach myself more and more. So there's just like, with everything that we've named as the struggle, and, we've already touched on some of the strong points, like I hands down, even though it's definitely very complex and there's some very sharp pain points with it, I would never in a million years trade it. A million years trade it for anything. And I know that you feel the same because this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
What is your, like, I don't know, do you have like a grand vision, or do you see this like moving into something else? Because I feel like there's just no, like, as you like grow with it in life, you're like, oh, I mean, I'm already seeing an HSP mother support system that you're building. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's just so much that you can do, and bringing awareness to this type of person can be life-changing for the literal world. So I just would love to hear about what's on your mind.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like such a creator. Like I just love like coming up with new ideas, and like it's like blows my mind that you can have an idea and then like make it into a real thing. Like that's just the coolest thing in the world to me. So I'm obsessed, and I have like so many ideas. So to me, I mean, the big vision is that like just continuing to have all of this branch off. So there's literally something for every person in every stage of life, like where it's this hub where you can go and here's information about HSP moms. Here's like things for HSP business owner. Here's things for HSP kids. Like, I just want, I think it will just continue to branch off the way that it has. Because it's funny, like at first when I was like starting to want to talk to moms and business owners, like there was a part of me where I was afraid people would be like, oh no, is she only going to talk about that? And it's like, no, I'm always just going to talk about all the things, because my brand is just like being a highly sensitive person, and there's multi layers and there's all sorts of different people out there. But yeah, so definitely like having a whole universe of things. Also, like I really feel like I just want to continue uplifting other highly sensitive people and showcasing them, because my through line mission is to help empower highly sensitive people so that they feel confident and then they become leaders in their own lives, whether that's as a mom or a business owner or at work, where they feel confident. So then they're the example to others that like, oh, here's a highly sensitive person who knows how to use their voice. Because I think we need more empathy in the world. Like we just totally do. And so I I want to showcase more HSPs and give them more of a platform too. And just like so many things. And another cool thing is I'm going to write a book. I'm talking to a book publisher, which is amazing. And this has been a dream since I was a kid. So I feel like there's kind of this next like step where it'll be like writing a book, and maybe it'll be like speaking and things like that. I feel like there's no limit. And like the overachiever part of me is like, I want all of this now, but like as a new mom, I have to kind of trust the timing and trust that it's going to unfold as it unfolds. But I like want to do all of it like right now. But yeah, so all the things it's just going to be never ending inspiration. I feel like it's just, yeah, it's so fun.
Oh my gosh, how freaking exciting. I got goosebumps when you said a book. I can totally see a book. Oh my gosh. And speaking, like, oh, could you imagine you can't even fathom the ripple effect in the world, like forever from doing this, talking to high school students, being able to be at like parent teacher conferences, or not that granular, but like just for young kids. Like I know for certain one of my sons is HSP. I know it. And I'm so like, I'm very tender about it, like in a way that I'm like nervous for him, because I know that feeling, but I'm also so happy that I know. I know what to look for, and I know and I can relate to him. So I just feel like there's just no end to the good that this can do in the world. And I'm just so grateful for you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's something I feel like, that gets me like emotional too, is just thinking of like connecting with kids at a younger age, like in adolescence and teenage years. Like, oh my gosh, like the impact that will make, because that's where a lot of that conditioning starts, where we just like feel different and feel misunderstood. And like, how cool would it be for a sensitive kid to have an example for them to see like, oh no, it's cool. And like, actually here's some like great superpowers and strengths you have just by being you, and having parents who can nurture that in them. Like that will like that will help those kids grow up with more confidence and do, not have to spend so much time unlearning all of this crap that a lot of people have to do. So yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, it's so needed. I'm so grateful to like get to do this work. It just feels like a pleasure and a gift. I'm like so happy. Yeah.
And this through line to begin to wrap it up, this through line of like turning a pain point and something that feels like a very tender vulnerability into your like power and your purpose. It's something that I only realized like last year, because of course it's like right under your nose. You don't realize it. My biggest fear in life, like my panic attack I had when I was 12 years old about like death and the idea of nothingness. I've literally used that for the rest of my life in my work. Like that is the nucleus of my work. This is like, I was like, oh, what? One day, nothing. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How do I show people that what's important? And then like, by the end of it, which I'm not at the end of it, but like by the time that I was able to decipher it, I'm like, oh, I'm documenting the nothing moments, because the nothing is everything. Okay, that feels way more comforting. Like maybe death isn't nothing, maybe it's everything. And I'm going to spend my life being able to look at the thing that sent me into a panic attack when I was 9 years old. You know what I mean? And I can do this for other people and help other people live better. So it's like this, I always feel like the things that, I mean, if you're in the personal development world, we all know this, of like the things that trigger you, it's an opportunity to look at. You ever always want to, but, for people that are not in that world, I feel like it's so valuable to be able to illustrate what can happen when you take something that feels like and you turn it into something that is like magic.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, and I love your like mission, like, oh my gosh, the way you said that is so beautiful. Nothing is everything. That's so cool. But yeah, like, and I mean, when you kind of are able to shift into looking at things in that way, it just gives so much more meaning to life. It gives so much more meaning to the struggles. It's like, it allows you to have more empathy and compassion, because you've now gone through this thing and you're going to be able to intimately relate to others in a way that you never would have been able to if you hadn't gone through it. And I think the important thing is like being able to have the perspective to see it in that way. And it might take some time to get there, because when you're going through it, or it's like, oh my gosh, this is so painful. This is the worst thing in the world. Why is this happening to me? But if you choose to have the awareness when you're starting to come out the other side, like, oh, wow, like to look at the lessons you learned and see ways that you can help people. I feel like a lot of highly sensitive people just go through these really crazy things in their lives, or really painful things in their lives. And because I really feel like we're here to share and uplift others. Like because we're such meaning makers, it's like we have these things happen to us that we have this capacity to then turn around and help other people heal if we are open to believing that. And so it's kind of like, it's just really interesting to me how so many of us have these stories that like are painful, but then so many of us are now choosing to create beauty from that and help others because of our empathetic hearts. Like I think it's for a reason. I really, really do.
Thank you for your empathetic heart. I feel so grateful for the work that you're doing in the world. And I just know that you are going to activate so many people you already have. Please tell us where we can follow you, where we can listen to your podcast, and any programs that are coming out, or I know that you have a membership. Is that still enrolling?
Yeah. So where you can find me, I'm most active on Instagram at Life by Alissa. And there I have my website linked, sensitiveandsoulful.com. So you can like find all like the freebies that I have and programs and things like that. My membership, I'm actually not enrolling again till next year. So I always just will share online when that'll be open again. My Sensitive and Soulful Self-Worth program is a really good place for HSPs to start if you're kind of like, you're wanting to delve more into being highly sensitive and learn about how self-worth impacts everything. That's like probably one of my favorite programs. But yeah, there's so many different things. So just check me out on Instagram. You'll find all the things.
Amazing. And all of these links that Alissa just mentioned, I will put in the show notes so you can go and click that. Thank you so much, Alissa. This has been amazing.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I've loved it.
If you enjoy this episode, share it with a friend. One of the greatest gifts in life is to be able to feel seen. And I think that when you share a heartfelt anything that reminded you of someone or made you think of how it could benefit them, it's a gift. So if you feel so inclined, please do so. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. And I look forward to gracing your earbuds in the future.